Imagine driving deep into the mountains of West Virginia, down narrow roads that twist and turn through dense forests. The trees grow so close together that sunlight barely touches the ground. Your cell phone loses signal. Civilization feels far away. Then, as you round a bend, the forest opens, and you see it. A small, almost empty town. Rows of brick buildings line the street, but their windows are shattered or boarded up. Grass grows through the cracks in the sidewalks. There are no stores open, no gas stations, no kids playing in the yards. The train tracks run silent, rusted with time. And yet, there's a strange heaviness in the air, a feeling that the town isn't entirely abandoned. This is Thurmond, West Virginia, once a bustling hub of the Chesapeake and Ohio Railway, a symbol of wealth and industry, a town that never slept. Today, its official population is less than a dozen. But ask the locals, and they'll tell you, Thurmond may be nearly empty, but it's far from quiet. Some claim that when the sun sets, you can hear the distant whistle of a train that hasn't run in decades. Others say the old hotel, burned to the ground long ago, still echoes with the laughter of card players. And then there's the most chilling story of all, the ghostly conductor who still waits for passengers that never arrive. This is not just a ghost story. This is the story of how a thriving town froze in time, and why its past still lingers in haunting ways. The birth of a town. To understand Thurmond's mysteries, we first need to understand its history. The town was named after Captain W.D. Thurmond, a Confederate Army veteran who settled here after the Civil War. He owned a massive stretch of land in the New River Gorge, an area that would later become known for its rich coal deposits. By the late 1800s, America was changing fast. Cities like New York, Pittsburgh, and Chicago were booming, powered by coal and steel. Railroads stretched across the country, connecting towns and fueling industries. The Chesapeake and Ohio Railway, C&O, became one of the major lifelines of this transformation. And at the heart of it, strategically placed between the coalfields and the larger industrial markets, was Thurmond. The railway built a depot there in the 1880s, and almost overnight, Thurmond transformed from a patch of land into a booming railroad town. Coal trains roared through the gorge day and night, carrying black gold that would feed America's hunger for energy. The New River Gorge became one of the richest coal-producing regions in the world, and Thurmond was its beating heart. The Golden Age of Thurmond. At its peak in the early 1900s, Thurmond was the place to be. Trains carrying thousands of tons of coal passed through every week. The town had banks, saloons, hotels, and shops lining the streets. For the miners and railroad men working in the nearby camps, Thurmond became a place of escape, a small but rowdy city where they could drink, gamble, and spend their hard-earned wages. One of the most legendary spots was the Glen Hotel, a massive wooden structure that became famous across the United States. The hotel wasn't just a place to sleep, it was a destination. It had a ballroom, saloons, and gaming rooms where fortunes were won and lost. There's one story that still circulates among historians and locals alike. Supposedly, the Glen Hotel was home to the longest-running poker game in American history. 14 years, non-stop. Day and night, the game never ended. Players would come and go, dealers would rotate, but the table never closed. Imagine the smoke, the laughter, the arguments, the clinking of glasses, for 14 years straight. And Thurmond thrived. By 1910, the town's banks handled more money than anywhere else in the state of West Virginia. Its rail depot was the busiest on the Chesapeake and Ohio line. Trains loaded with coal left constantly, while passenger trains carried people from all over the country into this little mountain town. From the outside, Thurmond seemed unstoppable. But history had other plans. The slow decline. Every empire has its fall, and for Thurmond it came faster than anyone expected. In the 1930s, the Great Depression rocked America. Coal demand plummeted, mines closed. Families who had depended on the industry packed up and left. Then came disaster for the town's crown jewel, the Glen Hotel. In 1930, a fire ripped through the massive building, burning it to the ground. The hotel that had been Thurmond's pride, the center of its nightlife, was reduced to ashes. The decline didn't stop there. By the 1950s, diesel locomotives replaced steam engines, and fewer trains needed to stop in Thurmond. Cars and highways gave people more freedom to live elsewhere. Slowly but surely, the once thriving hub turned into a ghost of itself. By the end of the 20th century, Thurmond's population had dwindled to single digits. Businesses shut down. The grand brick buildings stood empty, crumbling, their windows shattered by time and neglect. But while the people left, the stories remained. A town that refused to die. Here's where Thurmond becomes more than just history. It becomes mystery. You see, most ghost towns die quietly. They fade into the past, nothing more than ruins or forgotten names on a map. But Thurmond didn't fade. It lingered. The buildings still stand, preserved in eerie silence. The train depot still watches over the tracks. The streets are still there, though empty. And then there are the stories that suggest something. More than just old bricks remain in Thurmond. Stories that make you wonder if the town really is as abandoned as it looks. Railroad workers started whispering about phantom trains. They said that when they worked at night, they sometimes heard the distant chug of a steam engine, the screech of wheels on rails. But when they turned to look, nothing. The tracks were empty. Visitors who wandered near the site of the old Glen Hotel claimed to hear voices, laughter, footsteps, even the sound of cards being shuffled. But the hotel had been gone for decades. And then there's the conductor. Locals say that if you go into the old Thurmond station at the right hour, you might see a man standing by the ticket window. He's dressed in a black conductor's uniform, his hat pulled low. In his hand, a ticket book. He looks as real as anyone until you try to approach. Then, without a sound, he disappears. It's as if Thurmond's past never truly left. The people, the trains, the noise, they may be gone in the physical sense, but their energy still lingers, replaying like an echo through time, setting up the mystery. So what is Thurmond really? A town haunted by ghosts of its golden age? Or simply a place where our imagination fills the silence with stories? Think about it. If walls could talk, what would these buildings say? If the tracks could whisper, what secrets would they reveal? When you walk down Thurmond's empty streets today, you don't just see ruins, you feel something. A weight in the air. A sense of eyes watching you from behind broken windows. A chill when the wind whistles through the depot, sounding just a little too much like a distant train. This is where our journey truly begins. Because Thurmond isn't just about history, it's about mystery. And in part 2, we'll go deeper into the stories that locals and visitors have shared. Stories that blur the line between fact and legend. Stories that make you question whether the town is really abandoned at all. A town of echoes. When the last businesses closed and families moved away, Thurmond should have become like any other ghost town. Quiet, forgotten, nothing but broken bricks in the mountains. But Thurmond didn't disappear. Its buildings, though empty, stood tall, as if they were waiting for something. And maybe, in some strange way, they were. Because almost as soon as the town was declared dead, strange stories began to surface. Workers, travelers, and even visitors from miles away reported experiences that couldn't be explained. It was as if the town itself had become a giant echo chamber, replaying fragments of its own past. And the most unsettling part? These weren't just random sounds or flickers in the dark. They were full, living impressions of a time long gone. The phantom train. The most common story about Thurmond involves a train. Railroad workers have long whispered about the sound of a locomotive moving along the tracks. They describe it in vivid detail: the low rumble, the squeal of metal wheels, the steady chug-chug-chug that every train makes as it powers forward. Some even claim they can feel the vibration under their boots. But when they turn around, expecting to see a massive steam engine, there's nothing there. The tracks are empty. The night is silent. One former worker, interviewed years later, swore that he once stood on the bridge near Thurmond station and watched what he thought was a train approaching. Its light shone through the trees, its whistle cut through the night air. He even stepped aside, waiting for it to pass, but it never came. The light vanished. The sound stopped. He was left alone on the bridge, shaken to his core. What makes this story eerie is that steam locomotives haven't run through Thurmond in decades. The world has moved on. Diesel engines replaced the old iron beasts long ago. But in Thurmond, it seems the steam trains never left. Some locals believe this is because the energy of those engines, the sheer force of thousands of trains that once thundered through the town, left an imprint on the land. Like grooves on a record, the tracks still play back the past. Others believe it's something far more literal. The ghosts of the trains, and perhaps the men who ran them, still move through the gorge, refusing to be forgotten. The hotel that burns forever. If the phantom trains are Thurmond's most famous legend, the Dunglen Hotel is its most haunted. Built in 1891, the hotel was a marvel of its time. It had nearly 100 rooms, balconies overlooking the river, and an energy that never seemed to fade. It was a place of celebration, of gambling, of music and noise. But in 1930, it all came to an end. A fire broke out in the middle of the night, sweeping through the wooden structure like dry paper. Within hours, the grand hotel was gone. All that remained was ash and rubble. And yet people say the Dunglen never truly disappeared. Hikers who pass by the site claim to smell smoke in the air, even when there's no fire. Some hear faint music, ragtime piano, laughter, glasses clinking together. A few have even sworn that they saw the outline of the hotel, glowing faintly in the dark, as if time had rewound for just a moment. The strangest reports come from those who say they heard the shuffle of cards and the murmur of voices, as if the legendary 14-year poker game is still being played in the ruins. Imagine standing in the middle of the woods, the night silent around you, when suddenly you hear laughter and the sound of someone calling a bet. You turn, but no one is there. The Dunglen Hotel may have burned down 90 years ago, but its spirit, quite literally, seems to remain. The ghostly conductor. Perhaps the most chilling story of Thurmond is the one that has given it national attention, the tale of the conductor. According to local legend, visitors to the old Thurmond station have reported seeing a man in full uniform, black jacket, brass buttons, cap pulled low. He looks every bit the part of a Chesapeake and Ohio railway conductor from the early 1900s. He doesn't move much. He simply stands by the ticket window or near the platform, ticket book in hand, as if waiting for passengers. At first, people who see him often assume he's part of some reenactment, or perhaps a park ranger in costume. But when they try to speak to him, or worse, when they approach, he vanishes before their eyes. One visitor described it like this: "I saw him standing by the tracks clear as day. The sun was just starting to set, and he was right there, tall, dressed in black, holding a small booklet. I thought maybe he was a volunteer. But when I walked closer, he faded. He didn't walk away, he didn't run, he just dissolved. And I'll never forget the cold rush of air that hit me the second he was gone." Some believe this spectral figure is tied to a tragic accident. Records suggest that several conductors died while working on the C&O line through Thurmond, some from train collisions, others from accidents during the dangerous process of coupling cars. Could this ghostly conductor be one of them, still bound to his station, forever checking tickets for a train that never comes? The hotel that burns forever. If the phantom trains are Thurmond's most famous legend, the Dunglen Hotel is its most haunted. Built in 1891, the hotel was a marvel of its time. It had nearly 100 rooms, balconies overlooking the river, and an energy that never seemed to fade. It was a place of celebration, of gambling, of music and noise. But in 1930 it all came to an end. A fire broke out in the middle of the night, sweeping through the wooden structure like dry paper. Within hours the Grand Hotel was gone. All that remained was ash and rubble. And yet, people say the Dun Glen never truly disappeared. Hikers who pass by the site claim to smell smoke in the air, even when there's no fire. Some hear faint music, ragtime piano, laughter, glasses clinking together. A few have even sworn that they saw the outline of the hotel, glowing faintly in the dark, as if time had rewound for just a moment. The strangest reports come from those who say they heard the shuffle of cards and the murmur of voices, as if the legendary 14-year poker game is still being played in the ruins. Imagine standing in the middle of the woods, the night silent around you, when suddenly you hear laughter and the sound of someone calling a bet. You turn, but no one is there. The Dun Glen Hotel may have burned down 90 years ago, but its spirit, quite literally, seems to remain. The ghostly conductor, perhaps the most chilling story of Thurmond, is the one that has given it national attention, the tale of the conductor. According to local legend, visitors to the old Thurmond station have reported seeing a man in full uniform, black jacket, brass buttons, cap pulled low. He looks every bit the part of a Chesapeake. An Ohio railway conductor from the early 1900s, he doesn't move much. He simply stands by the ticket window or near the platform, ticket book in hand, as if waiting for passengers. At first, people who see him often assume he's part of some reenactment, or perhaps a park ranger in costume. But when they try to speak to him, or worse, when they approach, he vanishes before their eyes. One visitor described it like this: "I saw him standing by the tracks. Clear as day. The sun was just starting to set, and he was right there, tall, dressed in black, holding a small booklet. I thought maybe he was a volunteer. But when I walked closer, he faded. He didn't walk away. He didn't run, he just dissolved. And I'll never forget the cold rush of air that hit me the second he was gone." Some believe this spectral figure is tied to a tragic accident. Records suggest that several conductors died while working on the C&O line through Thurmond, some from train collisions, others from accidents during the dangerous process of coupling cars. Could this ghostly conductor be one of them, still bound to his station, forever checking tickets for a train that never comes? Theories behind the hauntings. So what's really happening here? Are Thurmond's stories true paranormal activity or something else? Paranormal investigators who visited the town believe that Thurmond is what's known as a residual haunt. This means that the energy of past events has imprinted itself on the land and the buildings, replaying moments from history like a recording. The laughter from the hotel, the sound of the train, even the conductor, they may not be conscious spirits, but echoes of another time. Others argue that the energy is far more active. They believe that spirits of the workers, the gamblers, the conductors, and the townspeople never left. For them, Thurmond is still alive. They walk the streets, play their games, and run their trains, even if no living soul can see them clearly. And then, of course, there are the skeptics. They say the sounds are nothing more than natural noises amplified by the gorge. The stories? Just the imagination of people who want to believe in ghosts. After all, abandoned towns tend to stir our minds into creating mysteries. But here's the question: how do you explain so many people, across so many years, experiencing the same things, the same sounds, the same visions, the same ghostly figure of the conductor? Coincidence or something more? Thurmond is not just a place of history. It's a place where the line between past and present blurs, where echoes of another era still walk the streets. From phantom trains to the laughter of gamblers long dead, from footsteps in empty buildings to the ghostly conductor waiting for his passengers. The town refuses to stay silent, and the deeper you go, the more unsettling it becomes. Because if Thurmond's spirits truly are still here, the question is, what do they want? In Part 3, we'll confront the most chilling theories and explore what keeps the town alive long after its death. And maybe, just maybe, We'll uncover whether Thurmond's mysteries can ever be explained, or if some places are simply meant to remain haunted forever. The lingering questions. We've walked the streets of Thurmond. We've heard the whistle of phantom trains. We've stood in the shadow of a hotel that no longer exists. And we've looked into the eyes of a conductor who shouldn't be there. But after all the stories, all the whispers, one question remains. Why? Why would a town, abandoned by industry and deserted by people, still cling so tightly to its past? Why does Thurmond feel alive long after its death? Some mysteries demand answers, others demand that we simply listen. And when it comes to Thurmond, the truth may live somewhere in between. Theories of the hauntings. Historians and paranormal investigators have offered countless theories to explain Thurmond's strangeness. One of the most popular is the idea of residual energy. Every human action leaves behind an imprint. The thousands of footsteps, the endless sound of trains, the laughter from the Dunglen Hotel, maybe all of it is still here, replaying on a loop. Not intelligent spirits, but memories burned into the air itself. But others disagree. They argue that what happens in Thurmond is far too personal, far too direct to be mere echoes. The phantom conductor, for example, isn't just a recording. Witnesses say he looks at them. He stands still, waiting as if aware of their presence. That isn't an echo. That's something else. Could it be that the spirits of Thurmond's past residents, unwilling to let go of the place they loved, or perhaps the place they suffered, still wander its streets? A town built on sacrifice. To understand the darker side of Thurmond, you have to remember what life was like here in its heyday. The coal industry was brutal. Men worked long, grueling hours in dangerous mines. Accidents were common, cave-ins, explosions, deadly gases. Railroad work was no safer. Conductors and brakemen risked their lives every shift, climbing between cars to couple them together. One wrong step, and they could be crushed instantly. And yet, despite the risks, people came to Thurmond chasing opportunity. The town saw more than its share of triumphs, but also tragedies. Countless men died in the mines, on the rails, or in the river that flows beside the town. Some believe their spirits never left, tethered to the place where they lost everything. Perhaps that's why Thurmond feels different. It isn't just haunted by ghosts, it's haunted by sacrifice. The visitors' stories. Even in recent years, modern visitors have added to Thurmond's legend. A group of ghost hunters once spent the night inside one of the old bank buildings. They set up cameras, voice recorders, thermal scanners, the works. For hours, nothing happened. Just silence. But at 2 a.m, one recorder captured something chilling. The sound of a man's voice saying, "Tickets, please." Another visitor, a hiker exploring the gorge, claimed she saw smoke rising in the distance. Thinking there was a fire, she rushed toward it, only to find nothing there. No flames, no ashes, just an empty field where the Dunglen Hotel once stood. And then there was the story of 2 friends who camped near the tracks. In the middle of the night, they both woke to the sound of a train thundering past. The ground shook. The whistle screamed. But when they opened their tents, there was no train, just the moonlit tracks, silent and empty. These aren't stories from 100 years ago. They're from today, which means whatever is in Thurmond is still here. The pull of the past. So what makes a town like Thurmond so magnetic? Why do people keep returning, even when there's nothing here but crumbling brick and rusty tracks? Maybe it's because Thurmond represents something we're all afraid of, the idea that time can stop, that progress can vanish overnight, and that everything we build can be reduced to silence. But Thurmond also whispers a strange promise that nothing is ever truly gone. That energy lingers. That stories never die. And maybe, just maybe, that's why the ghosts of Thurmond hold on so tightly. Because if they let go, if they disappear, then Thurmond truly dies. And that, perhaps, is a fate worse than haunting. Facing the conductor. Of all the legends, none is more powerful or more unnerving than the conductor. They say if you're brave enough to stand alone in the station after dark, you might see him, at first just a shadow, then a figure, the gleam of brass buttons, the outline of a hat. And then the eyes, fixed on you. Some swear that if you hold out your hand, he'll reach forward too, as if to take your ticket. Others say he simply waits, silent and patient, as though his train is forever delayed. No one knows who he is. Some say he's the spirit of a man killed in a rail accident. Others believe he's a guardian, a symbol of the town itself, making sure Thurmond is never forgotten. But here's the most chilling part. Witnesses claim that when he vanishes, the air turns ice cold, and the silence that follows feels heavier than any normal night. Almost as if he's warning you, this is my station, these are my tracks, and you're just passing through. Theories versus fear. Skeptics will always argue. They'll say the train sounds are echoes of distant engines in the gorge. The voices are tricks of the wind. The conductor is nothing but a shadow cast by moonlight. But even the skeptics admit Thurmond feels different. Stand in its streets and you'll understand. There's something in the air that logic can't explain. Because maybe it isn't about proof. Maybe it's about presence. The undeniable sense that the past hasn't left. The final thought. So what is Thurmond, West Virginia? A forgotten coal town preserved by history? A ghost town where echoes of the past replay themselves? Or a place where real spirits still walk the streets, keeping watch over a world that has long moved on? The answer may never be clear. But one thing is certain, Thurmond refuses to die. And maybe if you visit you'll feel it too. Maybe you'll hear the whistle of a train that doesn't exist. Maybe you'll see smoke rising from a hotel that burned nearly a century ago. Maybe, just maybe, you'll lock eyes with the conductor himself. And if that happens, ask yourself this: is he waiting for you? Or are you waiting for him? If this story gave you chills, let's hear your thoughts in the comments. Do you believe Thurmond is haunted, or is it just history echoing back at us? And don't forget, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and share this video with friends who love exploring America's forgotten places. Because there are countless hidden towns, legends, and mysteries across the USA waiting to be uncovered. And together, we'll explore them all.